In this segment, we'll talk about the equipment you need for architectural photography. Architectural photography is one of the few types of photography that your camera is going to make a significant difference. The most popular types of cameras are full-frame cameras and crop sensor cameras. A full-frame camera has a larger sensor than a crop camera and gives you a larger frame of view. The crop sensor cameras gives you a crop of the full-frame camera as you see here. So with the same photo taken at the same distance, at the same lens, your field of view is decreased with a crop sensor camera. Full-frame sensors also have more light gathering ability, therefore they handle low light with higher ISO settings much better than a crop sensor camera. Full-frame sensors will also have a broader dynamic range. Since quite a bit of architectural photography is done with a wide-angle lens, you can see how this will affect your final image. However, you can certainly capture great images with a crop sensor as well, so don't give up if you don't own a full-frame camera. There are plenty of photographers who have created amazing images without a full frame. Lenses. Generally the most important investment that you can make. It does come with a cost. We're going to go over several different types of lenses as you see here, and we'll start with the wide-angle lens. A good wide-angle lens like this one, a 16 to 35 millimeter f2.8, is going to give you a super wide view, which kind of enables you to get into a tighter shooting area and more expansive views. The downfall of the wide-angle lens is keystone distortion. You're going to see the buildings look like they're falling backwards. And that's called a keystone distortion, and there's several things that you can do to correct it. We'll talk about that during this course, but know that that's one of the consequences of the wide-angle lens. The 15 millimeter 2.8 fisheye lens is a super fun lens. It's ultra wide angle for tighter shooting, so you can get in tighter spaces. It also gives you expansive views like you see here with the Eiffel Tower. The downfall of the fisheye lens is the bulbous distortion, which is not desired all the time, but certainly can be appreciated in many applications such as this. There is a way to fix the bulbous distortion, and we'll also talk about this in this course. A good telephoto 7200 2.8 lens is also going to be beneficial because it's going to minimize that distortion. So why don't we use it all the time? Because you're going to have to stand really far away from the building. So as you can see here in this diagram, the building is in red. My fisheye point of view, I was right on top of the building and still able to capture the entire building. A little step away from that was where I was, or with the wide-angle lens. And all the way about a block away, I was standing with the telephoto lens in order to capture those photos. The last lens we'll talk about is a tilt shift 17 millimeter lens. This is the Mac Daddy that takes some skill to operate, but it affords you the advantage of a wide angle, at the same time allows you to tilt and shift the lens to fix distortion in camera, so you're not having to do it in post-processing. These lenses I talked about were for the full-frame cameras, so excellent choices for a crop sensor camera would be a 10 millimeter fisheye lens, and also for the wide angle, a 10 to 20 millimeter lens would be a good option. Graduated neutral density and polarizing filters are also going to be excellent tools to keep them on hand in your camera bag. Graduating filters are darker at the top, which darkens your sky in comparison to the building and the ground below. You're also going to need a cable release or a remote trigger when we start photographing buildings at night. And a really fun tool, definitely not a must, but certainly something to add if you can, is a Cam Ranger. Cam Ranger is a device you can connect to your camera, and it displays your images on your phone or your iPad. You can even have it display your images on your computer. You're also going to need a tripod. Sturdy is key here. Forget the lightweight smaller ones. They are lighter to carry, but they can be a big mistake. A ball head is much more useful than a pan tilt head that is usually used for video. Pan tilt will only allow you to adjust the pitch and yaw of the camera position, but the ball head is going to let you rotate 360 degrees around. And that's just about it for equipment that you'll need. So let's get started shooting a building during the day. When photographing a building during the day, you can get away without a tripod. However, in HDR photography, you'll do better if you are. We'll discuss that in the next segment of this course. First of all, camera settings. You'll want to start in manual mode. In broad daylight, you've got plenty of light, so you're going to set your ISO to 100 or 200. It's the brightest light, and all you will need for daytime. Next, you're going to want to set your aperture for depth of field. And for depth of field in architectural photography, you're going to want a deep depth of field, since you want your foreground all the way to your background in focus. Since we're shooting with a wide-angle lens in most cases, f11 is going to be an excellent go-to to set your aperture. The last step is to set your shutter speed. It's quite easy to get the proper exposure at this point. Simply use your camera's light meter indicator to know if you are properly exposed. It looks like this. Your image is properly exposed when your indicator is metering at 0, or at least that's what the camera's computer thinks. Remember, it is a computer and it may not be the absolute best, but it will definitely get you your starting point. An underexposed image will look like this. But if you watch the meter indicator while adjusting your exposure, you'll eventually see the indicator on 0 and see you have proper exposure. The point of doing this manually is to understand you don't have to stay on 0. You'll find that sometimes the best image is going to be a little darker or a little lighter. When photographing architectural photography, you'll want to walk around the property looking at all possible perspectives, leading lines that make your composition better, and patterns that can be interesting. Look for reflections. Be sure to keep your camera level. One of the biggest no-nos and biggest distractions in architectural photography can be a wobbly horizon line. During the day, the first thing we're going to notice is a lack of dynamic range. For example, this house here, where you can't see where the door is, and you barely see where the windows are. The camera doesn't have the ability to see the same dynamic range as the human eye can. Here's an example to try to make it make sense. With your eyes focused on the ground in the first photo here, you see what the eyes would see. We can see the detail of the ground and the bottom of the Eiffel Tower. And as the eyes go to the top of the image, we see the sky in good color. But really what our mind sees is all of it all together, because our brains can process that. Dynamic range is where the eye has a huge advantage. Our pupil opens and closes for different brightnesses, and it far surpasses the capabilities of a single camera image. Our eyes can see up to a range exceeding 24 stops of light. A camera, however, cannot. One of the ways to offset the harsh daylight is the golden hour. The golden hour is in the earlier and later parts of the day, basically the hour after sunrise and the hour before sunset. It provides a golden light from the sun being low on the horizon. The best way to know when the right time of day is to look up your sunrise and sunset times. I have an app on my phone and it's called Sunset and Rise. It gives me the exact times in whatever location that I'm going to be in, of what time the sun is going to rise and set. Don't count on it being an hour though, it really isn't an hour, although most refer to it as that. So you'll want to take the time to set up your composition ahead of time. Planning ahead will go a long way and pay off.